Hi everyone, Mark Ruff here. Sorry I couldn't make it on Tuesday, and I'm hoping that this little webinar will be able to be used as a substitute to perhaps provide some education and even some entertainment. Alright, a little bit about myself to start with. I am essentially a photographer. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have won various awards over the time, and I also have some qualifications with having a Bachelor of Applied Science in photography. I also have a degree in physics, and perhaps most importantly I have a Master of Photography status with the Australian Institute of Professional Photography. Now the interesting thing here, of course, is that I did this entirely with 3D work, so I'm the only one in the world to have this accolade based on 3D work. I've also been working with camera arrays in the past, and I'm an Australian Cinematography Society Award winner for innovation and advancement of cinematography. So, all very good. Now, I'd like to maintain your attention because at the end of this presentation I'm going to be giving you a privileged special offer for the first 5 people who want to take up that offer, but more of that later on. Okay, let's have a bit of a talk about the history of the multiple camera array. So I'm going to show you a television commercial that's actually on air at the moment for Terry Shear. I have no association with the company, but it's just an example of where a traditional camera array would be used. Quite simple in theory. Multiple cameras capture a viewpoint of an action from each of their individual viewpoints, and when you edit those frames together, the moment in time appears to be frozen as you move around it. You can also introduce a small inter-camera delay, which gives you real-time capture as well. So you can record 2 different temporal frames at the same time. So quite interesting. Anyway, let's have a quick look at that.
A rental property can be a rewarding investment, but even with great tenants, there'll always be life's unavoidable accidents and uncertainties. Standard building insurance may not cover damage caused by tenants or loss of rent, leaving you out of pocket. Terry Shear is Australia's leading landlord insurance specialist, and from as little as 1 week's rent per year can protect your property and rental income. Call Terry Shear today.
Okay, one of the reasons that I'm using camera array technology is that the film industry has been in a bit of a demise, and there's just no budgets for these type of special effects anymore. Anyway, again, just a little bit more about why I got into this area. I was actually working on a new Alex Proyas Hollywood blockbuster called Gods of Egypt. Alex Proyas did Dark City, Robot, The Crow, and various other big internationally acclaimed films, and I was commissioned to provide frozen moment matrix style effects for the film with my old Canon 10Ds. I have 60 of those that were purchased in 2003, and I was just looking into body scanning as I started work on this feature film, and the visual effects producer asked me if we could actually do body scanning, and I said, look, I'm looking into it, but I had to be honest with him, and I said, no, I really have no experience with that. So sadly we couldn't do that at the time. They actually had a requirement for it in some of their other effects, and sure enough, one of the actors refused to do a stunt when we were using the camera array, so we had to temporally and spatially match the scene of a stunt double and then do a lesser move with the real actor, and then of course combine those two together. We all thought it was a bit of a lost cause, but in fact we actually did it. So we've got some great accolades from the visual effects producer there that handled all that. Alright, so one of the reasons that it got me involved was because no one else in Australia could do this high-end work. So I thought, well, that's my hook in the industry, to be able to at least apply that service. It also means that you can do television commercials, general visual effects with this sort of equipment, and of course 3D body scanning. So it would seem that there's only about 5 of us in the world that do this sort of work at a really high end level, and it's not just about the technology, it's about being able to work that equipment properly and to be able to make an engaging experience for the person you're photographing, and being very, very professional about it. These actors and celebrities will not spend much time with you. Naturally, they will do the job because they're being paid to do it if it's a paid job, but certainly everyone wants a smooth operation. Camera arrays are notoriously difficult to set up. Camera triggering, synchronization, post-production, positional stabilization, camera tracking, vector-based interpolation, and all sorts of things. All very, very high-end stuff, which I can do. So that's all very good. So why would you actually use a digital SLR camera array for body scanning? Well, the first one is you can do it instantly. So let's have a look at this particular shot here that I have up, and you'll notice that everyone's sort of being well behaved and moving, but if we look at this little fellow in the background there and zoom in, we can see that most people are recognisable and sharp, but this person's not. And that's because back in the old days of early black and white plate photography, exposure times were notoriously slow, in the area of half a second to seconds, and you just couldn't photograph action and freeze it. Artistically, of course, motion blur can be used quite well, but certainly in the creation of 3D models, you have to have pin sharp, very, very high quality images to get good results. So, camera movement is really quite an interesting scenario, because a long time ago they used to have what was called post-mortem photography, and because shutter speeds were so slow, there was no way really of photographing children or pets or animals or things that moved. So this is a little bit morbid, but what they actually used to do in the old days was have a baby that's been deceased, and they would pin the eyelids open and paint the eyes with glycerine to make them look alive. Sounds quite terrible, but this was actually a very highly sought after service, and really it's wonderful to be able to capture these things, and there was no other sort of service around in those days, so you will not have seen photographs of kids living when they were this young in the early days of photography. The giveaway, of course, is their blank expression. They might look good, but they always have this lack of a smile. When we take photos today, it's expected that you have a smiling and happy face, and that's not necessarily the be-all and end-all of photography, but certainly the iPhone and photography generally has been devalued because no one pays very much for photography anymore, and everyone can do it. Back in the old days, photography used to be a dark art. People would go into a dark room after taking your photo, and then sometime later come back with an image. It was truly magic, but that magic is now gone, quite sadly. So fortunately this has been a bit reinstilled with the camera array, by being able to capture people not from just one viewpoint but from everywhere, and I think photographers can potentially offer another service for people. Wonderful. The other thing really is about the quality of the camera array. Quality, again, I think is paramount, and it's also paramount to the person that, say, drives a Lamborghini. This person expects a champagne service, and they're willing to pay for it and receive it, but you have to be very good at it. Shopping booths and shopping malls just simply don't work, as there's no customer engagement or user experience. It has to be fun. It's got to be worthwhile. In fact, there was I was talking to fund manager for the people that were developing the booths for fashion, so that they could have a uniform fitment size, and it looks like that's pretty much collapsed, and it was no surprise to me because of that same reason. Pixie Photos in Australia went bust, I think about 2 years ago, but 4 years ago they were worth something like $85 million, and they went from $85 million to zero in 3 years. Quite sad, really undermines the whole scenario of having professional photography done. So that was, even though they didn't provide a very good service, the service was there. But I think now people are realising that shopping malls and booths in shopping malls just aren't a pleasant way to shop anymore, certainly not for that type of service. Alright, there are other systems out there, and of course the Raspberry Pi seems to be the popular one at the moment, and let's face it, they're pretty good. They use pattern projection, which allows you to create probably a good model. Sometimes camera rays are notoriously difficult to capture some featureless fabrics, and the pattern projection by the Raspberry Pi camera is quite a good solution to that, but sadly they're still low resolution, and typically only 5 megapixels, and it doesn't really matter how many cameras you have. If you don't have high resolution to start with, your texture of that model will certainly suffer as a result. They also have an insanely small footprint, and although it's small in diameter, it's still over 1.5 metres high, so it's no good for a shopping mall environment, because they won't let you have anything over 1.5 metres high. The other thing is that they're not actually instant. They do take 2 exposures, one for the pattern projection and one for the texture capture. So even though it sounds quite fast, it's not really. You can't do any action photography at all. My DSLR camera uses very high output, short duration flash at 1/7000th of a second, and this gives you pin sharp photography at any self-propelled human motion. So it's always going to be exceptional quality for what you have. We're also using small depths of field, and it's just the DSLR system is just insanely more superior than the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi good for doing a small colour figurines, but I think that's leads on to the next area, which is really the business of this type of photography, and I think it's been very poorly handled in the past. People have gone out there with price wars, and people are selling figurines for $99 overseas. It's just, I just can't see the point in that, because as a portrait photographer myself, I can sell photo packages up to $5,000. Now, I can't see why you would use all this expensive technology. It takes a lot of time to produce something and sell it for peanuts. It's just not the way to go. As I mentioned before, people are expecting a champagne service to pay for this sort of stuff. Shopping malls and booths won't work, it's no one values what they don't pay for. And an example of this is, when was the last time you heard of someone complain about their new car they bought? And I'm talking new car, not a second-hand car, because no one will complain about the new car that they've bought. They can, of course, complain about the second-hand piece of rubbish that they've bought, and they can often find complaints with that. And if you're paying 50 cents for something, it's just not valued. But if you're buying a $30,000 car, a $300,000 car, you will value that with pride and joy, because it is probably quite unique and something that not everyone can do. The low cost and low value just doesn't make sense. I mean, the product's really good, but it's just not sustainable to be charging such low rates. People are in this sort of price war scenario, so really not very good. I believe though that there is a case for selling figurines up into the thousands of dollar mark, and then you're still providing a good service for people with a good product. Not something small, colourful and gimmickry. It's got to be something really, really quite exceptional and good. So I think that just about covers the business of photography, and it's not just myself either. I've been on various forums and across the world, and people running a good business are just astounded at how poor business people have driven the cost down, thinking that they will get more clients in by being able to have a cheaper product, and it just doesn't work that way. Again, I want to be selling Lamborghinis, not Toyota Camrys. Okay, so normally I'd be asking for questions at this stage. This is a little bit of an abridged version of what the talk was going to be. But you're more than welcome to send inquiries to Mark at 3dbodyscan.com.au. The website 3dbodyscan.com.au is where you'll find examples of my work. And this particular version here of Stefan Dennis, as he's been rotating around, this is actually with an 8K texture. This has just been taken off Sketchfab, so the quality is quite poor. But you can really zoom into this, and you've got a great piece of work that can be 3D printed or used electronically. They're zooming right in there now, and just phenomenal sort of quality. Really quite proud of that. All right, now we're coming close to the end, and just one more thing to mention, and that's the special offer. I'm about to release a new product, and I'd like you to be the first people to be aware of it. It's going to be a 3D bust approach to the 3D printing, and I'm going to be charging $3,000 for this service. I'll be using my 80 camera array to be able to capture people instantly, and then we'll be making a 340 plus centimetre bust figure, which is something of a legacy item. It is unique, it's not gimmicky, it's not small, it's really going in at the high end of the market. So this is only available for the first 5 people, and you would have to make a booking at the end of the week. And again, you can send any inquiries to mark@3dbodyscan.com.au. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and have a great conference. Hope you all go well with business. Thanks very much. Bye for now.